We're going to go live. Okay, go live. Anyway, let's get rid of my thing here, and that's good. Right, here we are live on YouTube. I can't stream tonight to Twitter or X for some reason. Don't know why. But anyway, Richard, good evening. How are you, sir?
Good evening. Very well, thank you, my man. You?
Yeah, I'm really good. I'm dying to know. You mentioned about social media before we started. Have you had a problem on social media?
Oh, we'll get into this as we go. Let's get through to some questions first. But yeah, let's get the numbers up before we start to whinge, I think.
All right. Okay.
I tell you what, there is one thing, Steve, that I wanted to touch base on before we get into the questions. I can see a couple of questions coming through in number there, but I've promised a few people on social that I will get into a few things during the live. One of them I can't find.
Right.
But the other one I can. So I'll read this quickly because it's a super simple answer. The question or the message reads, "Hi, Richard. I'm new to keto and looking for advice. I'm trying to keep my carbs under 20 grams per day. As often as I can, only eat natural food for proteins and fats. Any advice on what I can do to help, etc." So basically just to make sure that that this person is doing things right. Look, it's super simple. It's the insulin to glucagon ratio that allows us to be ketogenic. And in order to do this, we need to keep insulin as low as we can. In order to do this, we need to avoid the compounds that are going to elicit an insulin response. Now, there are two compounds primarily. There are more. Two main compounds, carbohydrate being one. This is why we need to keep the carbohydrate incredibly low. And the other is seed oils, vegetable and seed oils. In fact, seed oils, which are high in an oxidized omega-6 called linoleic acid, can lead to higher or more insulin resistance than the ingestion of carbohydrate. So these are two very important things. So this gentleman references 50 grams of carbs each day. 50 is a lot. 50 is a lot to be able to maintain a ketogenic state. I would preference closer to 20 or lower. I have seen people able to achieve and maintain a ketogenic state on 50, but they're very few and far between. So keeping this insulin response as low as possible is going to allow you to do this. So what do we need to consume as far as nutrition goes on a ketogenic lifestyle? Well, it's simple. It's fats and protein. Everything in nature comes with fat and protein as far as animal proteins. And animal proteins provide us with this perfectly packaged present that contains fats and protein. Every cell in our body is made of fat. Every cell in our body is made of protein. And as a weight, lipid, polysaccharide, or sugar, glucose, only makes up 2%. So we need to predominate the animal proteins. Every single vitamin and mineral that we need, not just to survive, but thrive, are found in animal proteins. And animal proteins in nature come with the natural fats. So my initial advice for somebody gravitating into a ketogenic lifestyle is not to track per se. Just try to keep carbohydrate as low as you can. Avoid the vegetable oils because these are going to elicit that insulin response. Predominate animal proteins and natural fats. So if you are living a ketogenic lifestyle and you are still consuming fruits and vegetables, keep the vegetables on your plate to 1/4 of the plate. So we are in a society in which we add a chicken breast to our plate, for example, and we fill the rest of the surface area of our plate with vegetables because we believe that it's the vegetables that confer the benefit. We believe it's the vegetables that contain all of the vitamins and minerals. But this is untrue. The vitamins and minerals are found in abundance in animal proteins. And in fact, there are vitamins and minerals and compounds within animal proteins that we cannot obtain from vegetables. I'm not telling you not to consume the vegetables, but if you are living a ketogenic-based lifestyle, eat a lower amount of the vegetables, predominate natural fats and protein. Aim for around 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. You can do ideal body weight, but just going by body weight is fine for the initial phases. In regards to the plant compounds that you add on the plate, look for the ones that are lower in carbohydrate. as the first port of call. Second port of call, look for the ones that are lower in lectin. And the third port of call is try to remove the ones that are higher in oxalate. Now, I have this sheet, which I don't know if you can see there, Steve. It's probably a little bit blurry. But you can get this, which is a shopping list from my website, and I'll pop a link below. When you sign up to the website, you can get this shopping list, and it's also available online. And what this shopping list highlights are the vegetables. It's a traffic light system. So they are vegetables that you can consume more often, the vegetables that you try to consume less often, and the ones ideally that you can consume but you want to try to avoid. Now, for somebody living a low-carb ketogenic lifestyle that's gravitating into this list is perfect. It's not one for the elite carnivore in the room, but it is certainly for the majority of the population, because the majority of people are looking to gravitate into low-carb keto through these incremental changes. So I've just popped that shopping list into the chat. You can go on, you can view that online, you can sign up to the newsletter and download it and stick it on your fridge. But try to stick to those. So super long story short, keep the carbs as low as possible. Avoid the grains, avoid the seed oils. Predominate animal proteins, roughly 1 gram per pound of body weight. You don't need to track the fat. You can go over on the fat, especially in the initial stages. Opt for the least toxic fruits and vegetables, which are available on that list. Everything else, you don't need to worry about. The body will do everything else that it needs to do. And we can get into electrolytes as we go a little bit deeper down the line, which is one of my bugbears over this weekend, I must add. But we'll get into some questions, Steve. That's my first rant over. And we can get into this and we can get into the other bits as we go.
Well, I didn't think that was a rant. I just thought that was giving information out, to be honest. Yeah, let's have a look at the questions then, or that are online. Well, let's look at a comment first. Zinc 316. Hi, Richard and Stephen. Just wanted to shout out Richard's consultation service. Super lovely dude to speak to. Down to earth and very informative. Would recommend. Have a great live. Thank you very much for that, Zinc. Nice to meet you the other day, by the way.
Fantastic gentleman, also. Fantastic gentleman.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yes. Now, Norman Chester. Can I start the carnivore diet? Oh, bear with me, Rich, because there's 3 bits for this. Can I start the carnivore diet no matter what my numbers are? Very high or very low? Thank you. Right. Now, no matter what my numbers are, you shouldn't say you can start anything with that very broad statement. That doesn't tell us anything, because if your numbers are a particular thing, it might indicate that you need to go straight to A&E. I mean, so it's a bit too vague, Norman. Right, now then, Andy added, your tricks are 800, aren't they, Norman? And then Norman has replied to say, it would not let me enter all the information. They are 357 now. So if that was true, if they were 800 and they're now 357, that's a huge huge decrease, obviously. And that would indicate to me that if you have started carnivore diet, that's really good. And if you haven't yet, then obviously you've done something that has brought them down. There are many different reasons why triglycerides, and anything over 500, you might end up being a lean mass hyper responder, but there's many reasons why it might be 800. One of those is if you didn't fast before you gave blood. So he's then put a little bit more in here. My triglycerides are currently 327 in the US measurement. My total cholesterol is 174. I'm pre-diabetic, and my VLDL says I'm at risk of heart disease, very high. Can I start the carnivore diet? Well, yeah, because the thing is, if you can start any diet, the most healthy diet to start is the carnivore diet, because it's not inflammatory, there's not loads of sugars, it's not going to spike your insulin. VLDL and triglycerides, there is a link, because VLDL is rich in triglycerides, and elevated levels of triglycerides could be because you had a high VLDL. Now, VLDL being low, by the way, is a very good marker of if you're fat adapted or not. But there's many other reasons why VLDL may be high if you have excess body fat. But the biggest thing is if you have a diet very high in carbohydrates. So again, the carnivore diet would be better than most of the diets because there's no carbohydrates or very little carbohydrate. There could be some other factors going on as well. And to be honest, high VLDL could also be actually impacted by steroids, medications, beta blockers. So there's so many things. We can't give medical advice, right? It's just giving you very broad advice there. But I would always say, if you are starting a diet, the best one to start is a carnivore. And I can't think of any measurement number or anything that contraindicates the carnivore diet. Obviously, if you have an allergy to red meat because you've had a tick bite, obviously you can't do beef, but you can do feathers and fowl. You can do loads of things. So that's just that. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Richard.
Yeah, spot on. I completely agree. Look, we get too hung up on this whole cholesterol stuff. I test mine, and I test mine regularly, not because I'm concerned, but because I like data. What we need to understand first and foremost is cholesterol is essential. It's essential for life. We cannot live without it. If it wasn't for cholesterol, we would be dead. Every cell in the body is made of it. It's essential for cell formation, cell communication, nutrient absorption, nutrient transportation, the production of hormones, and it's essential for healing. So we do need cholesterol. We are told that HDL is good and LDL is bad, and that's not entirely true. Because LDL can also be good. And in fact, LDL is protective if it's the right type of LDL. And the right type would be pattern A and not pattern B, which is the very small dense. What we want is the light, fluffy type of LDL, which we can obtain through living a ketogenic and carnivore-based lifestyle. So it's not the consumption of the saturated fats that is going to cause a problem, as you rightly say. It's the fructose from the fructans and from the vegetables we consume. It's the plant sterols that cause problems, and the stenols. So plant sterols and stenols both artificially lower our cholesterol because the body believes that it no longer requires to make more. So it tricks the body into thinking that it has enough, which leads to problems. Because if we were to test our cholesterol and then we become unwell, i.e. we become susceptible to a virus, our cholesterol will drop because it's going to work, it's going to action, and it's allowing us to fight off this virus or infection and so on and so forth. So if our cholesterol is low to start with, then we have even less room to play with. But as you say, it's glycation and oxidation that causes damage to our cholesterol, and it's damaged LDL particles that are the problem, not the healthy LDL particles. And the way to get healthy LDL particles is to consume lots of saturated fats and animal proteins. Eat as nature intended. Now, if you doubt this, you can search for a term called cytosterolemia, which is a genetically inherited condition in which the sufferer loses their ability to excrete these plant sterols and stenols. And by doing so, it leads to a high level of these plant sterols, which leads to early onset cardiovascular disease. So how can lowering our cholesterol through plant sterols be beneficial when that condition clearly states that when plant sterols are increased, it increases our risk of cardiovascular disease? Just does not make sense. The people who tout this information are the people who are pushing medications and sugary sweets and treats. Think about what animal proteins is or are. They are natural, they are real, they exist in nature. Pop-Tarts, Burger Kings, McDonald's, sugary treats, they're not natural. So even from a simplistic point of view, why would eating animal proteins and natural fats be detrimental to your health? They're plain and simply not. And we reference many times a study published on the BMJ, which covers over 68,000 participants. And it looks at the relationship between high LDL and all-cause mortality. And what the study or the cohort actually showed was an inverse association representing 92% of the participants. This means the lower your LDL, the higher your risk of cardiovascular disease. So in answer to the question, as Stephen rightly says, a carnivore lifestyle, in my opinion, is the healthiest way to live. I believe that if you can do this, fantastic. I also believe that maybe some people find it easier to maintain and sustain through incremental changes. So you may find that gravitating slowly over a period of time may be more sustainable. And in order to do this, you just simply remove the grains, remove the seed oils. Then you concentrate on your electrolyte balance, make sure you're obtaining enough salt, because when you gravitate into this, the insulin drops, and this signals the kidneys to release the sodium from 4 points in the nephrons in the kidneys, which can lead to what's called keto flu. So we need lots of salts, Celtic sea salts preferenced, or electrolyte formula, which I make, by the way, and I want to, that's where my bugbear is, which we'll get into later. So make sure you obtain enough salts or electrolytes, and then you start to count the carbs. You make sure the carbohydrate content is low enough, and then you prioritize your animal proteins and natural fats. And as you gravitate deeper down the journey, you then start to look for the other least toxic plant compounds, which in my opinion are then things like bell peppers and tomatoes, which are high in phytohemagglutinin, which is a type of lectin, things like turmeric and spinach, which are high in oxalates. And you simply start down this journey of removing these things through incremental changes, and eventually you become more animal-based and carnivore. Now, Stephen and I have put together a course for this, which allows you to do this via incremental changes over an 8-week period. I'm sure Steve will pop a link below for that. It's available in our private Skool Group, which Stephen and I are live after this for 30 minutes at 8 p.m. And again, tomorrow for a full hour for private Q&A. There's usually 20 to 30 participants in there. But that course is available in there. It's a fantastic course for anyone who's new to this way of living to start, or recommended for a family member or friend who doesn't quite understand the mechanics behind living a carnivore or ketogenic lifestyle. And this will allow them to do so via incremental changes.
Brilliant. Hey, that is a very good answer. You're on fire tonight, Richard. I can just sit here and be in awe of you, I think, which is good. Right, now then, next question, which is not carnivore related, but we're happy to do that, Gemma, as a big supporter. Not carnivore related, but wondering if anyone can recommend a washing detergent that's not loaded with chemicals that affect our hormones. I use the laundry egg things, which are just basically like a little plastic egg, and in it are tiny little rocks, tiny little mineral rocks. That's it. And it does work. I remember when somebody actually showed me these about, it was actually when I was at the Edinburgh Festival for the first time, many years ago. And I was staying at a property for the month, and they said, we don't use detergent, we use these little rocks in an egg, plastic egg, and you put that in the washing machine, and it's brilliant. And I was a real skeptic and an absolute convert within that month. It totally brilliant. And basically they're just hydrophobic or hydrophilic suffocant. Oh, I can never say the word, but anyway, that's how they work. They're just minerals that do that. They lower the surface tension and decrease all the forces, all the forces within the fibers, and actually clean it brilliantly. It's absolutely brilliant. Have you heard of them, Richard?
I haven't. That's a new one on me, so I will be looking into that. Fantastic.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's good. Right. Next question then, sir. 8-month carnivore, beef, butter, bacon and eggs. Goal is to lose fat and build muscle. OMAD did not work for muscle gain. That's very true for many people, but 2 to 3 meals per day are working. Fat loss is slow. Any tips? Butter problem. Now, that leads me to think you think you might be eating too much fat. Now, if that's your intuition, then go for it. Just don't add the butter and see what happens to your body composition. I genuinely think that's what we need to say on that, but I'm happy for Richard to add some more.
Yep, I won't take up too much time on this, but look, it is incredibly common. OMAD is incredibly beneficial to many people. Men tend to do better on OMAD, which is 1 meal a day, than women for hormonal purposes. So I generally recommend men do 1 to 2. I tend to thrive better on 2 meals a day. Women tend not to do so well for prolonged periods of time on 1 per day for hormonal production. And I do recommend 2 to 3 typically for women, although we are all slightly different and we do react differently to different things. So I do know people, women who thrive on OMAD. So this is a generalization, but you're right. It's and it's to do with the elicitation and activation of mTOR. So mTOR, mechanistic target of rapamycin, which is the anabolic stimulant, if you like, that allows us to grow and heal and repair. When we are in a fasted state, then AMPK or autophagy are elevated. And when we eat meat or when we train or when we eat carbs, for example, mTOR is activated. Now, when we consume carbohydrate, mTOR is activated for a prolonged period of time. excuse me, for longer than it needs to be, and it can become problematic. So this is why we want to elicit this insulin response, which we do need, by the way. Insulin isn't the demon that we think it is. We need to elicit this insulin response via leucine, the amino acid, which is 10 times more anabolic than the other amino acids. This elicitation of insulin will activate mTOR, and it will give us the stimulus to grow. So the reason that you're seeing more growth through 2 to 3 meals a day is because we can activate at a maximum mTOR 4 times throughout one day, throughout a 24-hour period, which will allow us to maximize muscle growth. Ideally, we want to do this 3.5 to 4 hours apart, because we want mTOR to be activated, then we want it to come back down, and this is called the mTOR reset, and then we elicit another response. So in an ideal world, we would train fasted in the morning. Training elicits an mTOR activation. Then we would eat 3.5 to 4 hours after this. This is the second activation, and again 3.5 to 4 hours, and again 3.5 to 4 hours after that. This means that we can still be in a fasted state, or a state of autophagy, for 12 to 16 hours, depending on how the meals fit in, and elicit 3 to 4 mTOR activations via putting in those meals. Aim for around 40 to 50 grams of animal proteins at least, because the maximum of benefit from leucine is around 3 grams. So we need at least 3 grams, which is about 6 eggs, or as I say, 40 to 50 grams of animal proteins. Generally, it is more for beef and lamb. But when we elicit this mTOR response, we send the stimulus to grow muscle. In regards to the fat loss, 100%, I think it's Steve's right. It's the consumption of too much fat, probably. You can build muscle and lose fat at the same time, but it is a much slower process. You would be better off concentrating on one and then bringing in the other, but you can do it. It can be done. So if this is what you want to do, then it can be done. But you need to maybe remove all fats from cooking. Just cook in the fats that come with the animal proteins. I don't add any fats to cooking any longer. I don't add butter, tallow, lard, ghee. I just add the meat to the pan. Put the lid on the pan, and I let it cook in its own juices, in its own environment, and that's how I eat my meat. You can add fats, obviously. You can also you can alternate between fatty and lean cuts. We shouldn't fear fat. Fat is our friend. But if we look from an evolutionary perspective, then we would have consumed the animal as a whole, which contains fatty cuts of beef or meat, and it contains leaner cuts, i.e. the organ meats and the muscle meat that is less in fat. So it's okay to mix the types of meats that you consume in. Eat higher fat one day, maybe when you feel you need it, and maybe for the next day or two, you can go for the leaner cuts and vice versa. But as Stephen rightly says, I just remove the butter to start with and see how this affects, and then maybe make other changes a week or two down the line.
Yes, excellent, excellent. Now, Richard, I said, good evening. All was listening to Georgia Eid, but the boys are back in town. I'm just going to do a screen share. Yeah, I do too. Now, Georgia Eid was on a podcast, actually one I've never watched, I will be honest. It's not really my cup of tea. The Diary of a CEO, with 9 million subscribers, and already it's had 688,000 views. And it was Georgia Eid, who is a fantastic person. She's been on my podcast, and she's a fabulous person. And she talked about a few things, as you can see in the list of the timestamps there. But one of the things she talked about was fiber. And stupid YouTube's put a community note. I wouldn't even worry about clicking on it. Because what happened, the presenter seemed really shocked that fiber isn't essential and is problematic. One of the things he said was, it must be good because it lowers your glucose spikes. And Georgia, cool as a cucumber, went, well, where are you getting your glucose from? Because if you don't stick a load of glucose into your mouth, you're not going to raise your glucose levels, so you won't need the fiber. Now, all of these things, a little in the community notes, are just all the things, all the myth about fiber. They just basically trot it all out again. Because the Diary of the CEO guy said, isn't fiber good for your digestion? And Georgia said, well, it's indigestible. Why would it be good for your digestion? And I know there's a few things that Richard covers. So even on YouTube, they're now doing these community notes, and they're hopeless. I just wanted you to know that you don't need to read them, because we can read them if you want to, but they don't seem to address the issues. They just seem to back up the mainstream narrative, which is why I don't watch things like that, because a 9 million viewers there's going to be some funding behind it now. There's going to be sponsors, and they won't like you saying don't eat fibre. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. Right, a nice simple question for Richard. Hello, you two. I'm not sure if this has already been asked. Does braised or boiled meat have fewer vitamins? Is it recommended to mainly eat this kind of beef? Thanks.
Yeah, great question. Look, if you are at the point where you were thinking of things like this, then you were already winning. Even the lowest animal protein or protein source, the worst source, is still more beneficial than that of plants. Now, many people think I was accused today of being like a shill for the pharmaceutical companies because I was dissing plants and turmeric or something. But they're missing the point. Obviously, they skipped over everything that I was trying to make. Look, if you're thinking of this, Stephen, then you're already winning. Yes, cooking does degrade some of the properties within the meat, as it does with some of the toxins when we cook the vegetables, as it does again with the vitamins and minerals in the vegetables. But the vitamins and minerals found in vegetables, one, there are very few which are in animal form to start with, so they need to be converted. And I'll give you an example. Vitamin A. Vitamin A doesn't exist in plants. It's beta-carotene that needs to be converted into retinol, which is the active form of vitamin A, via an enzyme called BCMO. Now, interestingly, it also requires T4 for this conversion. Now, when this conversion takes place, this beta-carotene is reduced by over 20 times, making the conversion close to zero. But T4 is used in this. So people who suffer with thyroid problems maybe want to be avoiding vegetables that are high in vitamin A. Now, any retinol that it has converted is then required to convert T4 into T3. So anything that is left is used in this process, meaning that your body's probably going to be devoid of vitamin A everywhere else. Now, I'm not going to get into the rest of the vitamins and minerals, but they all follow a similar pattern when it comes from plants. So what we are told are in plants don't take into account this conversion process and bioavailability. So we see a figure of this much, but in fact, it's actually this much. Now, what is found in animal proteins generally is 100% bioavailable. Raw is best, but I'm also, I understand that many people don't want to eat raw meat. Cooking is the next best thing, but there is still far more nutrients in animal proteins, whether they're cooked or not, comparative that to plants. So yes, it does reduce it, but what you can do if you boil also is you can use that broth as as a gravy, for example, to get some nutrients back in that way. Now, what I tend to do is I tend to cook my meat at a low heat. So I pop my meat into the pan. I generally cook everything in a pan. I used to be well into cooking, by the way. I was going to enter MasterChef. I used to love cooking. I used to make these awesome dishes, and I used to take pictures every day of my meals. I no longer do this because all I cook now is a piece of beef. And you can't really make it look too sexy on a plate. I mean, you probably could, but there's only so many ways that you can do that. So I no longer take pics of my food, but I pop a piece of steak into the pan. I put it on very, very low. I put the lid on. It cooks in its own juices. It cooks in its own environment, and it's not burning. I'm a big fan of barbecues, and I love flash frying my beef. But this can also degrade the nutrients within, and it can also create a compound called acrylamide, which is created via the acrolein, which is found in the fat. And this acrylamide is a potent neurotoxin and a known carcinogen. That doesn't mean that you're gonna get cancer by eating burnt meat by any means. It is accumulative, but these are all about pulling the smaller levers. You're more likely to get cancer and fuel cancer via a high carbohydrate diet, because this is what cancer is fueled by. It's fueled by glucose and downstream of this glutamine, but glucose primarily through a fermentation process. These cells lose their ability for oxidative phosphorylation, and it kicks them into a process of fermentation. But we don't get this per se with animal proteins. We get all of the goodness. But for full disclosure, that's what I do with my meat, just to pull the rest of those levers to maximize my health and well-being. So just cook that way. Cook longer and slower, I think, is probably better. And just for full disclosure, to throw this into the mix, if you are going to have a barbecue or pan fry your beef at a high temperature, it's not going to be problematic. Unless you're consuming lots and lots of acrylamide every day for prolonged periods of time. This is all about the finer 1%, the little levers, if you like. But I wouldn't be concerned. And as I say, I revert back to my original comment, Steve. If you're thinking of this, then you're already winning. Just eat meat. It's as simple as this. Get your nutrients, just eat meat.
Okay, 30 minutes in, just a few things to say. If you want to give us a super chat to support the channel, that would be really great. Don't forget to put QQQ in front of your questions. Mr. Sunny Boy says Stephen Bartlett, who I assume is the person in Diary of a CEO. He's not going to contradict fiber because he's a big shareholder of Huel. And Andrew Scarborough, thank you, Andrew, for watching and being a big supporter. Following the Georgia Eid episode, he will be having a seed oil apologist from Zoe, Dr. Sarah Berry, on to debunk these facts. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, you see, this is the problem. But anyway, we've got 688,000 people saw Georgia Eid say what she said, and lots and lots of comments all backing up the ketos really worked. Right. If you like what we're doing, but you don't think we get to your questions because we do give you full and frank answers, you can always join our Skool community. And our Skool community looks a bit like this. It's a bit like Facebook, really, as in you can put lots of messages, get people to answer them. It's not like Facebook in that we've got lots of intelligent people who are like-minded and will help you and not call you lots of names. We also have a classroom with loads and loads of different courses that you can do, free ebooks on protein, fruit and veg, dairy, thyroid, 19 tips as a free keto course. And then the calendar, if you decide to watch us later at 8 o'clock, you just go to the calendar, click on there, 8 p.m. We're doing 30 minutes after this hour on YouTube. And tomorrow night, we do another hour of live question and answers. So if you want to join Skool, there is a link in the live chat. So we're going to go back to the questions now. And that was great. Okay, I've got a very quick answer to this one. Jonesy Lad 142. Hi, why are some carnivore? Right, let's start again. Why are some carnivore influencers adding fruit into their plan? Because they're idiots. Right. That would be my answer. But Richard, you can go more nuanced if you want. I don't know why they add fruit, because they're just bags of sugar. You don't need fruit. There's nothing in fruit that you can't get from meat, but there's plenty of things in meat you can't get from fruit. Yeah. So why do you need it? I don't. Do we need more sugar? No. Just so you know, Richard, I did a bit of filming over the weekend, and a nice couple, within 11 days, the guy lost 11 pounds starting carnivore, and his bloods now show from being diabetic, it's not diabetic. 11 days.
Incredible.
All right. This is one for you in particular, unless you want to touch on the fruit one. We have got lots of questions though.
Yeah, look, I'll be really quickly with the fruit one. I think it stems from Paul Saladino putting fruit back in, and I think there are lots of reasons that he's done this. One, I think views on YouTube, because he earns quite a lot of money from YouTube. There's only so many times you can tell someone to eat a piece of beef before the viewership starts to drop off. So why not change your way you're thinking? The other is he's big on organ meats, which are fantastic, but organ meat should be consumed in moderation and as part of the animal as a whole. The overconsumption of certain organ meats can increase copper toxicity. And he thought that this was an issue with lack of carbohydrate, but it's not. He suffered with low testosterone, where low testosterone can be a side effect of becoming carnivore, because the body upregulates its ability to use testosterone. Testosterone is used in the utilization of carbohydrate for fuel. It's also used in as the body loses body fat, which is why we see higher testosterone in the early stages. But when we have less body fat, there's less testosterone required. And testosterone is also used to create new red blood cells. But as you know from living a carnivore lifestyle, the reticulocyte count becomes lower because the red blood cell lives longer. So there's lots of reasons and nuances for this. The other, I think, was low T3. But again, T3 is also used in the conversion of glucose into energy via the mitochondrial pyruvate complex. So for all of these reasons, people have started to put fruit back in. Cortisol being another one. I won't get into this because we'd be talking about cortisol all day. But it's all misinformation based on misunderstanding, I believe. I'm 10 years carnivore. Well, at least I'm 10 to 12 years. I lose track of the time of being ketogenic. And I've probably been carnivore. I've been animal-based for much of this, but carnivore for 5 to 6, maybe longer. Look, I'm still not suffering and I'm still thriving. I'm becoming healthier and fitter the older that I become, and I will not be putting in fruit anytime soon, I can tell you.
Excellent. Let's go to the next question. This one is the one I said for you, Richard. Richard, you use glycerol in your products. Is it a safe sweetener to use on the keto carnivore lifestyle?
Yes and yes. Glycerol is a type of sweet fat. Technically, it's a polyol. It's one of 3 polyols that does not turn into carbohydrate, whereas things like xylitol and maltitol do. Glycerol I use in my bars. So I make low-carb ketogenic bars for the low-carb ketogenic market. So they contain ingredients that maybe the more strict carnivore wouldn't consume. But for the low-carb ketogenic market, the bars that I make, I genuinely believe to be the healthiest anywhere available in the world. They're the lowest carb bar per 50 grams, as little as 2 grams per 50 gram bar. I use glycerol, which is a sweet fat, and again, a polyol. So it doesn't cause issues where sometimes erythritol can, and erythritol is also okay, but the overconsumption of erythritol can cause gastro distress. There's less of all the nasties within these bars when we look at it from a carnivore perspective than anything else on the planet. So yes, I do use glycerol, and yes, I believe that it's safe to use as a keto and carnivore alternative as a sweetener.
And the same person is asking, does it work as a fat in the body?
Yeah, so it's a sweet fat. Yeah, so glycerol's a fantastic product.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Right, next question here is Barbara Fruitbat. Hi guys. I've really cut back on carbs and I'm still going very weak as soon as I've digested my food. Why don't I have reserves to tap into? Cheers. I mean, one of the things could be because if you've gone from high carb and low protein to high protein, low carb, your energy is going into digesting your meat. Protein takes about 5 times as much energy to digest as, say, a carbohydrate. So a lot of energy is going into digesting it. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just a thing you need to be aware of. Could be because you're not eating enough fat, which would help with digestion, and also you would produce more bile, and bile will help you to absorb your amino acids. But as in, why don't I have any reserves to tap into? I don't really know what you mean by that, but maybe Richard can get to what my question is.
Yeah, I'm guessing Barbara means fat stores. Look, we all have fat stores to tap into. Even elite athletes at 6% body fat still carry around 150,000 kilojoules of energy stored as fat. Look, it's an adaptation process. You have been feeding your gut microbes carbohydrates or sugar for your entire existence. Now the body's going through a process of die-off, the gut microbes are dying off, and now what's left doesn't know how to process the proteins and fats efficiently. So it's an adaptation process. You just need to grit your teeth and power through this. There are things that you can do to fast track. As Stephen says, make sure that you consume in plenty of fats. This will fast track this conversion. You should be able to use the fat for beta oxidation. But downstream of beta oxidation is ketone production. So ketones, the 4th macronutrient, and in my opinion, one of the most important ketones. So when you go deeper down the journey through the HMG-CoA pathway and we produce ketones, in the early stages, we produce ketones that are not very efficient and we waste many of them. We waste them in the form of acetone and acetoacetates via the breath and via the urine. These are ketones that the body is not using efficiently. It takes time for the body to upregulate specific processes, the monocarboxylate transporters and enzymes within the cell called BDH, ACAT, and SCOT, in order to utilize these ketones in the form of beta-hydroxybutyrate. And that's the key. So we need to get to the point where we are producing and utilizing beta-hydroxybutyrate. So you can do this in a number of ways. Consistency is key. You can consume C8-MCT. This will help increase the monocarboxylate transporters. You can consume exogenous ketones. And for full disclosure, I do manufacture both. But this is why I manufacture them, because they have a purpose within the lifestyle. And the third, which is free, you can do high intensity training. which isn't suitable for anyone. So this could just be jumping on a rowing machine, for example, and just doing a few sessions very quickly, or a spin bike. Sprinting is another fantastic fantastic thing to do, but it's not one that I would preference for someone new to training. High rocks type training, fantastic. All of these are brilliant. But for someone who can't be mobile, then consistency, increasing the fat, making sure your electrolyte consumption is adequate, because we cannot create energy without electrolytes. And the downside to gravitating into a low-carb ketogenic lifestyle initially is that insulin drops. And as we said earlier, this signals the body to release sodium and other electrolytes from 4 points in the nephrons in the kidneys, which leaves us in an electrolyte deficiency, which means we struggle to make and produce energy efficiently. So consistency is key, but there are levers that we can pull, and we can get into more detail in this in the Skool Group, if you like.
Yeah, Skool Group at 8 o'clock for those that want to join. I think I'll put a link in the chat, which I've done it again, and it's also in the description to this video, which is great. Stephen, what a great name, by the way. Hello, you two. I'm not sure if this has already been asked. Does braised or broiled meat, I think that's meant to say, have fewer vitamins? Well, yeah. Well, braising is,
we did cover this, didn't we?
We did cover it. Yeah,
I
thought we did. Yeah. Right, so here we go. Let's go into the next one. Seedman. I've been type 2 diabetic since 2010, but have been in remission since 2018. Recently had a blood test which revealed a creatinine level of 105 and a GFR of 64. Doesn't seem to be a question to that one, so we'll go to the next one. Sorry. Hi, 13 months Carney. Can I ask about hangover type headaches? They come and go and last a few days. Cut milk and reduced eggs. I'm sure it's electrolyte related, but can't seem to get it right.
Yeah, fantastic. And incredibly common. It's the body's probably going through a detox period as well, Dax. So, I mean, 13 months in, you are definitely adapted. At least I should imagine so. I mean, it can take up to 12 months. So you should be adapted and being able to utilize beta-hydroxybutyrate. The body could be releasing toxins in the form of oxalate. If you've had a diet previously that's been high in oxalates, consuming things like turmeric and spinach and kale, for example, when it goes through this, this will bind to important minerals such as calcium and potassium. Potassium in particular, this can lead to hypokalemia, which can lead to us feeling nauseous and headaches. So the key to this, the key in my opinion when this happens is potassium citrate. If you add in potassium citrate has a high affinity to the oxalate. It'll bind to the oxalate, allow it to be excreted, preventing that low potassium or hypokalemia. Now, potassium is incredibly important because all of the electrolytes they're super connected. And if we were to consume too much calcium, for example, then calcium depletes sodium. It also increases the volume of potassium that's lost through the intestines via a magnesium mechanism. So all of the electrolytes become out of whack if one are not consumed in the right form, for example. But I do think that there's something else going on with this in regards to detoxing. So again, full disclosure, I make electrolytes. I don't have any with me to show you, but that's what's in there. This is what my rant was about on Amazon, by the way, which I'd love to get into at some point, Steve, if you didn't mind me.
Do a couple of minutes. I'm sure you can talk about it.
Yeah, as you guys know, I'm carnivore. I live a very strict lifestyle. I own a company called ketopro. My goal with ketopro is to support anybody that wants to make better lifestyle choices. And this means that I support vegans, vegetarians, anyone who's looking to making better choices. And typically this begins with removing grains and seed oils and gravitating deeper down the journey. So I make products across the board to suit all types of market. In the betterment of that person's journey. Some products are stricter than others, and one of my best products are my electrolytes. These are, I believe, to be number one in the world, recently echoed by Dr. Abs, who analyzed some of the big names, including Element, Revival, Dr. Berg, and so on and so forth. And mine came out for very good reasons as number one, for a number of reasons. My electrolyte ratio is unique, and I believe to be superior to anything else. I've also added things like molybdenum, selenium, and astaxanthin. Astaxanthin is the world's most powerful antioxidant and confers huge benefits, and I won't bore you with those details. But this is a product that I sell direct through my website and on Amazon. Some of the negative reviews that I've had on Amazon recently, I'm a small business, and all of the information is found within the cards on Amazon, the images and the description, and there's lots of reviews in regards to taste, and then it just really pees me off when people buy the product and leave a review based on something that they haven't read in the information. I even put a little insert inside the tub which tells people if it's too sweet or too salty, exactly what to do in order to rectify that, because some people find it too sweet, some people find it too salty. Now, they are salts, so they're going to be salt. So we try to offset this with the sweetness, but sometimes it's too sweet for people who have been living the lifestyle for a long time. And other people don't find it sweet enough who are coming from a high carbohydrate background. So we tried to keep it in the middle. These negative reviews are trashing my listing on Amazon, which has huge impacts on a small business. But what's really frustrating is I can't go back and address these comments. I can't go back and say, well, you're incorrect because of A, B, C, and D, and this is why astaxanthin's in there. This is what molybdenum does, and so on and so forth. So if any of you guys, and I know I've got a huge support in following through YouTube in regards to my electrolytes, if you've bought previously and you like the electrolytes, it would help me out immensely if you could go on and leave a positive review based on your previous experience. And should you wish to try them, or you've tried them before, I'm currently running an offer on the electrolytes. If you purchase a tub of electrolytes and then leave a review, so an honest review, and you go to the link that I'm going to post now and you put in the information based on your review, I will send you a free tub of electrolytes. So if you like the electrolytes, you've bought them previously, or you want to buy a tub, if you buy that tub and click on that link that I've just put into the comments and fill that in, I will send you as a thank you a free tub of electrolytes. But it just really grips me, Steve, when people don't understand a product and they slate it based on the very thing that makes it unique. And then they recommend other people's products who are far less adequate to the ratios and the ingredients and the type of ingredients that they use, which is absolutely astonishing. But unfortunately, as a business owner, I'm unable to go on and educate them as I can on the website and on YouTube. So there we are. That's my little rant over. I've popped that link in there. So anybody who would like a free tub, please feel free to do that and help.
And do you ship your bars to the US? Says April.
Yes, we do through the website, April. I'll also pop a link in the comments below.
Let's move on. Mr. Jobot. Tempted to try some raw meat. Would you personally eat mince meat raw or only cuts of meat? Well, I eat raw meat and raw mince. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, mince I think is best to start with. It seems to be a lot easier. I tend to eat, I like both. I do like to cook mine. I do like raw, but my preference would be to do what you did when we were at the PHC a couple of years ago, Stephen, and use some raw mince with a little bit of salt on. Fantastic. It doesn't taste the way that you think that it would, but I find it a lot easier to digest because it's already gone through the mince.
Yeah, I have a little bit of butter in it as well. Just mash it up, and it's wonderful. But anyway, right, let's get rid of that. Let's get into the next question, which is from Meaty Fan. Yeah. Richard, what are some ways to reduce? What are some ways to reduce or shrink the fat around the midsection? Love handles, spare tire. I'm male in my 50s, doing the proper human diet for almost 5 years.
PhD, proper human diet. I love it. I've never seen that written in the gap before. Fantastic. So look, we are designed to have a little layer of fat around the midsection. These images that we see in magazines of people ripped and shredded with veins going through their abs, that's not healthy. And I know you can't see my abs in there, but I managed to get to 2% body fat. I have abs now, but they are a little washed out. Think of a healthy body as being the old Tarzan films. Tarzan from back in the day had a healthy body, a slight layer of fat, but you could see the abs. So that's what I'd say first and foremost. You can reduce around the midsection if I'm assuming well, yeah, you've just said you live in a proper human diet for almost 5 years. Now we need to look at a number of things. We need to look at cortisol, the amount of times that you're training, whether you're drinking coffee or not. And thirdly, we need to look at the sources of the fat that you're consuming from the dietary perspective. So dropping coffee is going to be the first lever to pull because of the cortisol. If you are training in the gym for prolonged periods of time, then we need to reduce the training so we're not overexpressing cortisol, because this causes damage to the HPA axis, which leads to insulin resistance and basically tells the body to store fat. We damage the negative feedback loop, essentially, and this can cause fat deposition around the midsection. And the third lever, as I rightly said, is to look at the fat consumption. So we preference things like ribeye and fatty cuts of beef and the highest fat mince, which are all fantastic, and I do on a daily basis. But every couple of days, I will preference some leaner cuts. So I will go for skirt, for example, or I'll incorporate some organ meats. I may even eat some chicken, some salmon. I'm quite lucky and fortunate in regards to what I can consume. I eat lamb, so I eat fatty cuts of beef and lamb, and fatty cuts of fish, and leaner cuts. So it's okay to mix things up. So what we need to do is come out of our comfort zone, out of our box, if you like, and we need to break the resistance. So once we start to test the resistance, and this is a term I use from share trading, support and resistance. So once you test the support or resistance of a share when you're trading, on the third time, it usually breaks. So basically, by reducing the fat and feeling a little hungry, and so we don't have to reduce calorie per se, we just need to reduce the fat, or even consume the fat separate to the protein. And we can get into this at another time, because it's the elicitation of insulin via leucine, which is activating that response. But once we start to drop the fat, we'll start to test. Your body will move between an upper and lower level. And once we test this 3 times, it'll break. And this will then become the support and the resistance. So it's via incremental changes over a prolonged period of time. It took me 5 to 6 years of cutting twice or 3 times per year in order to get to 2% when I was on stage, which isn't healthy, by the way. The first time I competed, I was barely in single figure body fat. So there's a big difference. Yet the first year I competed, I could not get below, I think it was 7 or 8% for love nor money. And then the next time I came to cut, the body fixed the switch, thinking, right, okay, we're doing this again. Let's start ramping the troops. Let's start oxidizing this fat. And I managed to break through that. And then I was operating between a different upper and lower level. And then the following year, it was slightly lower, and again and again. So we can do this via incremental changes through those 3 main processes that I've just said there. But if you are part of the Skool Group, we can get into this in more detail. Again, Stephen and I are live 8 for 30 minutes and tomorrow for a full hour. And it's a fantastic way to get your questions answered in depth, a cheap consultation, if you like. So if you're available for that, then we can go into more detail.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's go into the next question. This is from Solar Dare. I think I've read that right. Any success stories, testimonies you've heard, seen about carnivore and severe OCD? If so, how would you suggest someone with severe OCD go about it, and what foods would you suggest having for it? Yes, there are success stories. I think the biggest thing is, if you know about OCD, which you probably do because you've got it, low vitamin B12 is one of the biggest things that you can improve upon those levels and see a reduction. So that's why some people with OCD actually supplement with B12. But the easiest way to do it is to go on carnivore, and then you'll also get all the other things that are helpful, such as magnesium and zinc and omega-3s. If you add some fat in, some grass-fed beef or some fatty fish, that would be really helpful as well. The other thing that actually has a huge impact on OCD is excursions in your blood sugar. So up and down blood sugar levels, as you can imagine, actually, it doesn't take much of a leap to realize that possibly could have an effect on your mood and how you perceive things, and your OCD can be much, much worse because of those things. Also, you're removing processed foods, which can really exacerbate symptoms and trigger stuff. So what food was I suggest you have? Well, anything that's carnivore, any animal-based food that you enjoy. That's the best way to start it. keep a mood and food diary. That's really good as well, because you can actually sort of try to see where you are, and in 4 weeks, 5 weeks, go back over the pages and see for yourself that you've written, things seem a bit better today or whatever. I think that would be one thing I'd definitely do, just to keep you motivated and on track.
Yeah, fantastic. And interestingly, just as another side note in regards to this, if B12 is an issue in regards to that, then it's worth checking the thyroid, because a poor functioning thyroid affects B12 absorption. So they could all be interlinked, which again, you can improve by living a ketogenic and carnivore-based lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice easy one here. My vitamin D level is 107. Should I stop taking my D for a while? Yeah, if you want to. You could definitely do that. That is quite a high level. So yeah, I would suggest that. I mean, normally I'm looking at 20 to 50 as a sort of normal range. I hate saying about normal ranges, because some people do better with low vitamin D, some people do better. I increased my vitamin D quite considerably, didn't feel any different, and I did that with supplementation. So, right, can I move on, Richard?
Yeah,
trying to get a few of these answered. Right, here we go. Graphic material, which is a very interesting name. That if vitamin C uses the GLUT4 transporter and it's activated by insulin, how can the vitamin get into the cell without elevated insulin? Well, that's because GLUT4 isn't the only one. There's also sodium activated transporters, GLUT1 and 3, which is an insulin. GLUT1 and 3 isn't insulin dependent, and also the type of vitamin C makes a big difference, whether it's oxidized or not. So there's no problem with low insulin. By the way, it's not no insulin, it's low insulin. So you still got insulin acting on the GLUT4 transporter if you need that vitamin C in there, but we need such low levels. I'm probably more happy with the sodium dependent vitamin C transporters, SVCT transporters, many people call them. And like I say, GLUT1 and 3. So I don't think there's a worry, but I'm sure, if Richard, you want to add some more, I'm happy with that.
I think you've nailed it. Other transporters, it's not the only one, pure and simple.
And I think actually, just broadly speaking, that is a really common misconception about the GLUT4. It's like everybody talks about that and insulin, and everyone thinks, wow, that's the only thing that transports glucose into the cell. No, there's 14 of them, and only one relies on insulin. All the rest don't. And you've also got other transporters that move stuff across the membranes, which are sodium dependent, or they need the sodium potassium pump to do it. So there's many ways of getting stuff into the cell. So I think that's the end. We've got 3 minutes to go to the top of the hour. We'll be going over to school now. And doing 30 minutes there. So if your question hasn't been answered, what I'm going to do now is some screenshots of the questions we haven't answered. Maybe we'll answer them over there. But of course, we've got members, and those members will take precedent because they're members. And Jonathan, by the way, Carnivore Muscle, nice to see him in the room. It was nice to see Andrew Scarborough as well. So I want to thank you two gentlemen for showing up. We haven't seen Abs for a bit, so it'd be nice to see him at some point. But anyway, I'm sure he's really busy. Did you want to say anything to the YouTubers?
Just thanks again. I think greatly appreciate your support. So it's Steve and I make the effort to come out on a Sunday and be exposed to all of this blue light for the benefit and the greater good. So we appreciate you returning the favor and joining the call and being part of our journey with us. So thank you.
Yeah, and just one question I haven't been able to screenshot, but April said, have either of you coached any Parkinson patients on how to use carnivore and reduce symptoms? Yes. That's definitely happened. But right, we have got to go because we've got to go over to school. So I want to thank everybody. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I hate saying all that stuff, but it does really help the channel. I was shadow banned last month. If you think you're subscribed, can you double check that you are still subscribed? Because for the first time in about 3 years, I actually had a negative amount of people joining as subscribers. That's been resolved. They're going back on. But I think YouTube are quite naughty and sometimes unsubscribe people. So if you think you're subscribed, just double check that you actually are. That would be really handy. And don't forget to go to Richard's channel as well and do the same thing. Share this far and wide. And thanks ever so much for watching. And we're going to go over to school now.
Thank you all.